Lingxi, squatting next to the fallen unconscious guard, told him to sleep here for now. The protagonist has a black mask on his face, and he said into the phone that he just checked all the CCTV footage in the control room, and while he couldn't determine where her sister was being held, it seems to him that she must be in the innermost section. Tilly's replied that she understood. She said that her sister had been given a death sentence, so the fact that she would be kept there made sense. Several guards appeared around Lingxi, and he said he could hold the fort for now, but she had better hurry. A guard smashed the glass on the alarm button with his fist and ordered them to chase after him quickly. Tilly's glanced at the glowing red light, thinking that they had sounded the alarm, and she should hurry. She spotted the guards running out from around the corner. Tilly's pushed one of them with force and another guard yelled out that there was another one. Tilly's thought there were too many of them and she wouldn't be able to. Yellow energy appeared in her hand. The blast of yellow energy pierced through the barbed wire wall. Lingxi turned around and thought that he couldn't believe that Tilly's had made such a commotion. Tilly's pulled the mask off her face and said that she accidentally overdid it. The guard behind her quickly stepped out from around the corner, pointing a gun at her. Tilly's opened her eyes in surprise. Lingxi, lifting her up in his arms, dodged the bullet and said that it was close. The guard who fired the bullet fell to the floor with a scream. The protagonist said that this was the real world and they would be finished if they were shot. He grabbed Tilly's unsuccessfully and she blushed in surprise. The end of his sentence Lingxi said lying on the ground face down, with his head burning with yellow flames. Tilly's, blushing, frowning and clutching her staff in her hands, thanked him. Fortunately, the third prison wasn't too big. Lingxi and Tilly's destroyed the CCTV cameras and knocked out the guards on their way to the innermost section. However, as time went on, the third prison went into a state of high alert. When they reached the innermost holdings, the destruction left behind served as a distraction to divert the military's attention. A man in one of the prison cells said he wondered what the noise was at such a late hour. Another man asked about it being a jailbreak. Laughing, he asked if they would take them with them. Another inmate said that it was a jailbreak. He asked where all the guards went. Lingxi and Tilly's ran down the hallway past the cells with the prisoners. The protagonist said they don't keep many prisoners here. Tilly said that this cell was much bigger than the others. She called out to her sister. Inside the prison cell, a silhouette of a person was sitting on the floor next to a simple bed. Tilly's called out to her sister again. A girl with gray hair and tattered blue clothes looked back. Tilly's told Lingxi that it was her and she was right here. She said she was going to get her out of there now. Yellow flames enveloped the bars of the prison cell. Tilly's asked in surprise that it didn't work. Lingxi said that it was useless and this grate was made with a special material and her attacks would not be enough to destroy it. Tilly's said that in that case, she would continue until she ripped it to shreds. The girl, covered in bruises and abrasions, trembling, begged for help soon. Tilly's asked what they could do. She said they had run out of time and she was about to pass out. Lingxi said he would give it a try. Holding out two purple daggers in front of him, he summoned Knight of the Glorious. From the dark magic circle, a knight appeared in front of him. Tilly's gritted her teeth and looked at the knight and thought that this was incredible, and it was the first time she had ever seen someone use summon in real life if the impact as if they were in the game. The knight told the protagonist that he came at his call. Lingxi asked him if he could open this prison cell for them. She said that their attacks didn't seem to work on her. The knight said that in that case, he will bend it open. Knight grabbed the two bars of the prison bars with his hands, bending them. Pulling the steel bars apart, he said that the deed was done. Tilly's exclaimed in surprise that he bent it open. Lingxi said that the Knight of the Glorious is equivalent to that of a Lord rank summon, and since the cage cannot be destroyed, he used his terrifying power to reshape it. He said that was pretty clever. Frowning, the protagonist thought about whether Knight of the Glorious could become stronger. He figured that when he got into the game, the knight would be very useful to him in his level up plans. Tilly sat down on the floor next to the girl, taking her by the shoulders and telling her to hang in there. Noticing the mechanical eye on the girl's face, Tilly's exclaimed in surprise that it was a dummy. Lingxi tensely said that they had fallen for their trap. The man on the dais said that he didn't expect this, and they actually managed to turn this door made of a special material into such a pathetic sight. He said it was something that could only be destroyed by cannon fire. Warden of the third prison, a man with blonde short hair, said that he didn't expect that she could find such capable helpers. He told Tilly's that he had noticed her from the moment she started lurking around. Tilly's sister frowned, wondering why she had come. Warden said that, after a little investigation, he realized that she seemed to have come here for this newly arrived death row inmate. Clutching a large metal chain in his hand, he said that when the higher-ups temporarily transferred this prisoner here, he never thought he could catch her allies with such a simple trap. Gritting her teeth and pulling the mask off her face, Tilly's whined and said that he was using her sister as bait. The protagonist, frowning, thought that it looked like she'd been discovered long ago. He thought that those three behind him must be moving armored soldiers who were known for their incredible defense skills. There were three silhouettes behind Warden. Warden grinned and thanked the death row prisoner. He said that he was now one step closer to his promotion. Looking at the armored soldier, Lingxi thought that although they weren't very strong, it looks like it's going to be a pain. Warden ordered the moving armored troops to just stall the two of them because reinforcements were on their way. He said as soon as they arrive, they've got this in the bag, and he's very interested in finding out who they are. Sister Tilly's gritted her teeth and thought that she shouldn't have come here. Tilly's told Lingxi to leave first. She said that she was extremely grateful to him for helping her get here, but he needed to get caught up in this and she would handle everything else on her own. Lingxi said that there didn't seem to be anything that could be done, and she'd better repay him properly later. Tilly's, frowning, asked about him still talking about something like that at a time like this. She didn't finish, surprised to notice something. In front of Lingxi, his hand was a purple magic circle. Spreading his hands apart, he told Tilly's to listen carefully. The protagonist told her to grab her sister and get out of here in the next minute. Tilly's asked in surprise what he was talking about. Lingxi, frowning, said that he originally planned to try out this skill in the game and fully understand it before using it. A black and gold sword hilt appeared in front of his hand. Behind Lingxi was a huge purple spirit with a sword, and the protagonist said that he never thought he would use it in real life first. Warden exclaimed in surprise about it being a weapon summon. Smirking, he said that he couldn't believe that he was able to summon a weapon of that size. He ordered the soldiers to attack. The armored soldiers rushed forward. One of them said about the target being an unidentified awakened. Frowning, Lingxi told Tilly's to leave these armored soldiers on him. He told her to grab her sister and leave first. He added that they would meet outside. Tilly's hesitantly agreed. Pushing herself off the ground, she ran to the side. Lingxi swung his hand. The purple spirit struck the ground with a huge sword, breaking the floor. Warden bounced to the side, dodging the blow. He tensely noticed Tilly's, who leaped at him with a scream to attack. Tilly's struck with yellow energy, breaking the chain restraining her sister. Warden exclaimed at the fire elemental battle mage. The steel chain snapped in half. Tilly's told her sister to run. Her sister jumped aside, gritting her teeth. Warden said with a smirk, it looked like he had underestimated them. Tilly's and her sister ran down the stone prison corridors. Tilly's defended herself from her pursuer with yellow flames that lit up the room around them. Tilly's sister frowned and asked her why she had come and if she knew how dangerous it was. Tilly's told her to talk after they got out of here. Sister Tilly's looked away tensely as she heard Warden ask if they thought they could take the prisoner away so easily. She told Tilly's about the man behind them. Warden approached them, pushing himself off the ground. Leaving behind a trail of blue energy in the air, he landed between them with force, breaking the floor. Tilly's exclaimed in surprise at the fact that he was an awakened one. Warden, holding a chain glowing blue in his hand, asked with a wide grin who they thought they were. He told them he wasn't a small fry. He said, with a wicked grin, that as long as he was here, there would be no record of prisoner escapes. He said that since they had come here, they might as well not dream of getting out. Warden clenched his fist with a chain that glowed bright blue and said he would show them the power of the military. The steel chain restrained Sister Tilly's again, and she said to let her go. Warden, ignoring her, told Tilly's that he would deal with her first and then about that other rat. Lingxi was fighting the armored soldiers with a huge purple spirit. He thought that they were working together, using both ranged and long-range attacks at the same time. The protagonist thought that this was indeed the most effective way to suppress the enemy. The soldier exclaimed in surprise as he absorbed their attacks. Blue shots struck the black sword. Lingxi thought that he didn't have time to waste with the likes of them and his friend needed him. The protagonist swung the purple dagger. The purple spirit struck two armored soldiers with the huge sword, and Lingxi shouted to them not to interfere with him. The soldier exclaimed in surprise when he saw the two soldiers hit the wall, thrown back by the blow. Lingxi frowned and thought that he didn't expect such a light swing to be so strong in the real world as well. He thought that the strength of this sword was beyond anything he could imagine. Looking at the huge sword, the protagonist thought that he would need to spend more time in the game to unleash its full potential. The flames lit up the prison room. Tilly stood with a staff in her hand, surrounded by the flames. Frowning, she called Warden a lover of chains and told her to bring her sister back. Warden, smirking, asked if she was as good at fighting as she was at talking. Tilly's sister's chained hands were above her head. Tilly swung her staff, surrounded by flames. Warden blocked her blow with a hand shrouded in chain, which pulled Sister Tilly's with every movement. With a smirk, he said that as expected of the girl, she wasn't strong enough. He shouted for her to try it on. Tilly's looked forward tensely. Warden used chain supplement, and a multitude of chains rushed towards Tilly's, hitting her and knocking her down. Tilly's used flame barrier, and a shield of flame appeared in front of her. One of the chains pierced through her shield and hit her shoulder. Tilly's frowned and thought that this was bad and she still couldn't fully use her powers in the real world, and it looked like she still needed to train to stabilize and increase her strength. Warden, surrounded by chains, said that it seems like her awakening rate isn't high enough and she's just a paper tiger. He said he's seen tons of people like her who thought they were invulnerable after becoming awakened. He said many of them were defeated by his steel fists. He said that she and her ally would also end up as his prison trophies. Noticing Ling Si appearing behind his back, he smirked and asked about this being another ambush and if this was all they rats were good at. Ling Si used evil spirit's invisibility, and an evil spirit appeared over Warden. Warden used mental fortification. Shrouded in a blue aura, he told the protagonist that unfortunately, fear-type skills didn't work on him. Ling Si said that it didn't matter. Landing next to Tilly's and her sister, he said that he got what he wanted. Tilly's, sitting next to her sister, shouted, "I got it." Warden, looking at the broken chain on his arm, said his goal was his chains. He said he was sure of the price for helping him escape from prison, and there was more than just chains waiting for him. The protagonist asked if that was true. He said it sounded like a headache. Warden's phone rang and he asked who was calling him at this hour. After picking up the phone, they exclaimed in surprise. Ling Si and his team listened silently as Warden obediently talked about something on the phone. A vein swelled up on Warden's face from anger and he clutched his phone with a hand shaking with anger. He told them he was giving them 1 minute to disappear from his sight. Tilly's, her sister and the main character were walking down a long tunnel. Tilly's said that they didn't seem to be chasing them. She asked what was going on. Ling Si said it was about that phone call. Tilly's sister asked her who he was. Taking the mask off his face, the protagonist said he can get the details from Tilly's because he won't stay any longer. He said that he will be going on ahead, and he hopes that Tilly's can be on time for their next meeting in the game. Tilly's sister exclaimed in surprise when she recognized Ling Si. She said that he had first arrested her and now he had released her. She asked if he is still with her. Tilly's told her that she would explain everything to her after they got out of here. Tilly's sister demanded an explanation. Tilly's said it's a long story and they need to get out of here first. Ling Si looked at the screen of his phone, frowning tensely. On the phone screen were messages from the general. "Having fun in the third prison, Ling Si. Perhaps you should come by my place right now." Pouring wine into a glass, the general asked Ling Si if he wanted a glass. The protagonist replied that he did not drink. Third General of the Ground Forces Office. The general raised his glass with a smirk and said that it was the right thing to do, and a person should always keep a clear mind so as not to make mistakes. He said it was grape juice, something to keep the hunger at bay. Holding the glass in his hand, Ling Si glanced at it. After a little silence, he asked if he had made that phone call that Warden had received. The general said that he was alerted the moment Ling Si rushed inside through the main entrance. He said he underestimated the military's intelligence network. The protagonist said that the reason he did it is complicated and hard to explain. He asked what he called him here for. Ling Si thought about how the military's intelligence network was much more effective than he expected, and he was happy to accept any form of punishment, but he couldn't drag the old man into it. The general looked at the protagonist with a cold stare and told him that words about a complex reason wouldn't work here. He said that he only got away because it happened in an area that was under his jurisdiction. He said that if someone else had been responsible for it, he wouldn't have been so lucky. Leaning back in his chair, the general said that even if he is strong, he will not be able to avoid being pursued by the military at this point. He added that at the very least, they could make the people he holds dear pay. Ling Si tensely asked why he had helped him then. The general replied that it was because of the value he has. The protagonist with a blank stare clucked his tongue and said straightforwardly. The general, smiling slightly, said he didn't like beating around the bush. He said the insignificant rebel army was at best something the military could deal with by simply following prescribed procedures. Looking at the protagonist, the general said that an awakened with limitless potential is worth doing him a favor. Ling Si asked if he was really that important and why he was. He asked about the fact that the army must have already recruited many strong awakened ones into their ranks. The general said that he needed to realize that he was of extreme strategic importance to them, and he hoped that he could focus his efforts on finding out how he could become stronger. The general with a grim face folded his hands in front of him and told Ling Si that he hoped that from now on he would think twice before taking such an action against the army. He said that he had called him here specifically to draw his attention to this. The general told him that until the army really needs him, he needs to get even stronger. He said that whether it was Heavenland or the Awakened, the reasons for their existence were not as simple as he thought. The general told him to go. He said that they needed him to become stronger and he would eventually realize why. Ling Si strained to think about the words about the moment when they would really need him. He thought about the fact that they wanted him to get stronger to make him a better tool in their arsenal. He thought that the case around Heavenland and the Awakened was much deeper than everyone thought. Ling Si, after returning home, told the old man that he had returned. After greeting him, the old man asked him what he hadn't eaten yet. There was hot food on the table. Ling Si thought of the homemade food smelled very nice. Licking his mouth with appetite, the protagonist thought that this could be the real reason to become stronger. The old man told him that a man in a hat came by today who introduced himself as his coworker. He said he told them they could move in anytime and asked them to get ready. He asked if he did arrange for this. Ling Si, remembering Adolf, thought that it must be him, and it looked like they would indeed be moving. He said with a smile that it was right. He told him not to worry because he would take care of everything. Hearing the phone, Ling Si lowered his gaze. Looking at the screen of the phone, he was surprised to think that it was Tilly's. On the screen were messages from Tilly's. "Hey, you left in such a hurry that I didn't get to thank you. We'd agreed that if you help rescue my sister, I'll grant you one request. Whatever it is, I'll do it as long as it's within my power. Feel free to come to me when you decide on what you want. We can meet either in the game or in real life. That's all." Ling Si, looking at the phone screen with a smile, thought that he only mentioned it spontaneously and didn't expect her to take it so seriously. Frowning, he thought that now that he was done with that, it was time to focus his attention on the game. The protagonist thought that his goal was to become the strongest in every aspect, and after that Torchfire dungeon he realized that he really needed to raise his level. He thought that he needed to gain a better understanding of the skills related to the Badge of the Glorious. Ling Si is in the game standing among the crowd. Looking at the dialogue box, he thought about the fact that the levels of everyone around him had skyrocketed after being promoted, and the highest level on the level ranking board at the moment is level 62. Ling Si thought that participating in the Torchfire dungeon had made him lose quite a bit of time. He thought that he was now level 42, and the faster he raised his level, the faster he could get better rewards, and it seemed like he had no choice but to go to that place. He thought to himself he hadn't planned on going there. Frowning, the protagonist thought that Heavenland's 100-story training tower was a special location only accessible after promotion. It was created to give players who are not good at dungeons a place to level up. It has a total of 100 floors, and players must start from the first floor and climb up. If a player dies, they will have to start over no matter how high they have climbed. Each floor has different monsters, and the experience from the monsters on the lower levels will be too little for him. Raising the level by this method would be too inefficient, so Ling Si never thought of going there. Ling Si thought that right now, he needed a place that gathered monsters in large numbers, and he needed to test his new skills. He thought that from what he heard in his past life, climbing higher would not only give him more experience, but also reward him with stronger skills. The protagonist thought that even though it would take a long time, he was very curious about how far he could go and what rewards awaited him there. There were many people standing around the tall tower, training tower landing. Ling Si, standing in front of the entrance of the tower, thought that this place was as always full of people and many of them were in teams. Looking at the dialogue box, he thought that he would of course go solo. Ling Si thought that although it would be more efficient to mop up the floor with a team, but then the experience gained would be equally distributed among the team members. The guy in the green hat asked with a smirk what kind of brainless person would choose solo mode. He said that the only way to pass this tower is team mode, because the difficulty level increases dramatically after level 20. The armor guy said that there's no way a solo player could survive there, and only a fool would choose that option. He said to look at the other players when they go in and he will see that those who go in solo end up dying a miserable death. On the dialogue box it says the best tower record is the 68th floor, set in team mode in 54 minutes. The guy, agreeing, said to just look at the record tablet next to the tower. He said the highest floor someone could get to was floor 68, and it was done by a team. The man in the wizard hat said it's a shame it doesn't show the names of the players, otherwise they could have asked them for some tips. The guy asked if it was even necessary to think about it. He said there should probably be a team of 5 major guilds. He said that 68 floors was impressive, and he was only able to get to level 20 because they had a healer with them. A cape appeared on Ling Si's shoulders and he said with a smirk that it was interesting and he would break that record. The guy looking at Ling Si entering solo mode teleportal asked if they heard what the fool said. Laughing, he said that he said he was going to break the record. Exhaling, the guy said that fools who keep talking about breaking records abound, and on top of that, this guy is also going solo. The other guy grinned and said that this was exactly the type of people he was just talking about, the ones who die a miserable death. He called out to go inside because he wanted to watch him die and mock them when he was kicked out. Ling Si, after stepping out of the portal, thought that this place really deserves its reputation as a place where every floor is a different world. He thought that it was truly breathtaking. Yellow clots of energy appeared on the ground in front of the protagonist. The dialogue box read, Floor 1. Monster, Mouthy Grass Monster. Class requirement, kill 300 mouthy grass monsters within 2 hours. The monster opened its mouth wide and attacked the protagonist. Its eyes reflected Ling Si as it rushed forward to attack. With a swing of his dagger, he sliced the monster in half and said with a grin that a light swing of his dagger was enough to kill it. Straightening up, he said it would be another boring farming session. The dialogue box said, Floor 1 progress, 2 out of 300. Ling Si noticed a monster died nearby. He was surprised to think about the fact that he wasn't doing anything right now. The protagonist was surprised to notice that the badge of the glorious began to glow brightly. A yellow dome-shaped barrier appeared around him. A dialogue box reads, large numbers of monsters have been detected in your surroundings. Permanent passive skill, Blessing of the Giant King, has been activated. The monsters surrounded the barrier around Ling Si, standing close to him. Ling Si realized that this was how Blessing of the Giant King was activated, and it was very useful. The dialogue box said, Effect, any monsters that come within a 1-meter radius to you will receive a certain amount of damage. Damage dealt will be based on your level and stats. This ability is ineffective against other players. The main character said with a smirk that they will see who the brainless fool really is. The dialogue box says, Skill upgrade requirement, use Blessing of the Giant King to kill 10,000 monsters. The effect's radius will be increased by 1 meter. The barrier around the protagonist, shrouded in yellow energy, scattered monsters around him. Floor 1 progress, 90 out of 300. Ling Si grinned and thought that this made things easier and he would just walk at a strolling pace. Floor 1 progress, 108 out of 300. The guy with dark hair, while chopping the monster, shouted not to slack off and hurry up. Ling Si calmly looked at the team channel. In the arena nearby, not far from the arena where Ling Si was standing, there was a team of people who were mocking him. They were surrounded by a crowd of monsters, and the guy said that they should be faster, and although they only needed 300 kills, they still needed to keep their guard up. A dialogue box appeared next to them with a picture of Ling Si on it. The protagonist said hello and said it was the guys at the entrance. The guy in the green wizard hat clucked his tongue and asked if he was the fool they had seen at the entrance recently. He asked why he looked so relaxed and if he needed to clear mobs too. Pointing his finger, the guy exclaimed that Solo Arena's progress bar was showing 288 out of 300 and he was almost done. A guy with dark hair asked about how this fool managed to kill mobs faster than them despite being alone. The other guy asked how he did it. He said he would look at the Solo Arena's feed. The guy looking at the dialogue box exclaimed in surprise, asking what was going on and if it was a skill. He said that the monsters seemed to be spontaneously combusting around him. The dialogue box above Ling Si's image read, Floor 1 progress, 300 out of 300. The main character said with a smirk that since he had nothing to do, he decided to say hello and see how they were doing. He said that it looked like they still had some work to do. The man in the red wizard hat, pointing his finger furiously at the dialogue box, shouted that it was none of his business. He demanded to reveal his personal information so they could see what skills he had. The other guy said he really wanted to send him a duel request. Duel request, in certain special areas, a duel request has to be made and accepted before a duel can take place. This is to ensure that the fight is taking place under the fair conditions. Ling Si said with a smile that there was no need for a duel request, and they could just see which could climb up that tower faster, him in solo mode or them in team mode. He said that was enough talking for now, and he was done. He said he'd wait for them at the top. The guy in armor shouted furiously for him to wait, and then they would show him. The guy in the green hat said he was already done with his 300 kills, and they barely had 100. The others, blazing with anger, offered to try harder because they couldn't lose as a team. Ling Si thought that as expected, the first floor was the easiest, and he thought he could have some fun competing against those people in team mode. He thought that he hoped they could catch up to him because it would help him spark his morale. The dialogue box says, you have broken Floor 1's record. Floor 1's best clear time, 10 minutes and 36 seconds. Your clear time, 6 minutes and 42 seconds. The protagonist thought that the lower floors had a difficulty level limit, and having an opponent would help him dispel his boredom. The dialogue box says, as you have set a new record, the experience gained from Floor 1 will be increased by 30%. Coming out of the portal, Ling Si thought that it was only the first floor after all, and this minor reward was like trying to fill a tanker with a glass of water for someone like him who needed a huge amount of experience to level up. A dialogue box welcomed the protagonist to the waiting area. The protagonist glanced to the side when he heard a voice exclaiming that he was very fast. In front of him was a guy with long green hair. Smiling, he said that he was watching the broadcast of him going through Floor 1. Smiling good-naturedly, the guy said that he was incredible. Ling Si, embarrassed, said that he just happened to have a skill that would be useful for clearing mobs. The guy said that the fact that he wasn't on the team was even more impressive. He asked about the fact that he'd probably set a new record at that speed. He said he was sure he had gotten an award for it. The guy asked if he could find out what that award was. The protagonist replied that he got an extra 30% experience, and it wasn't very useful. He thought about how he was very friendly. The guy, with a sly smile, agreed and asked about his level being low. He said he had hidden his level too. He said it would be great if he could get this award on a higher floor. Ling Si said that he would go further. The guy offered to go together. Ling Si looked at him questioningly. The guy said that he, like Ling Si, was in solo mode. Turning around, he called out to him and said that it was unknown what awaited them on the second floor. He added that he was looking forward to it. Ling Si thought that he didn't expect that there would be someone who would also be going through the tower in solo mode. The dialogue box said, Floor 2. Monster, Blood Wolf. Clear requirement, kill 500 blood wolves within 2 hours. In front of the protagonist was a red wolf with big fangs. The barrier of the protagonist hit the wolf. Ling Si thought that this was only the second floor, but the HP of the monsters here had already doubled. He thought with a calm face that the passive damage from this shield was still enough to kill them in one hit, but judging from how fast the HP was increasing, it probably wouldn't work on the monsters on the next floors. Thinking back to the dialogue box, the protagonist thought that according to the system description, the damage of this skill depended on its level and characteristics, and in other words, this barrier could do little to monsters that were near or above his level. Looking ahead, he thought that in order to increase its damage, he would have to raise his level. And in simple words, this passive skill would only benefit him when he was in a low-level area. He figured it was better than nothing. Looking at the blue portal, Ling Si thought that he would just walk to the portal to the third floor, and would surely fulfill the clear requirement by the time he got there. The dialogue box says, Floor 2 progress, 500 out of 500. As you have set a new record, the experience gained from Floor 2 will be increased by 30%. Coming out of the portal, the protagonist thought that even with the bonus of setting a new record, the experience gained from the lower floors was so low that it was insignificant to his level up plans, and he needed to hurry up. The guy with green hair appeared from the portal and exclaimed that he had overtaken him, and he thought he would be faster than Ling Si. He said that it looked like he had broken the record again. Turning around, Ling Si thought that this guy cleared the requirement almost as fast as him. The guy said that he just needed to try harder on the next floor. A voice announced a new notification. The dialogue box says, Attention all players who are valiantly in combat. A randomly spawned boss has appeared on floor 10. Kill the boss to receive additional rewards and leveling bonuses. This notification is issued only to those on floor 10 or lower. The guy exclaimed that they were lucky and he didn't expect that a randomly spawned boss would appear on floor 10. He said that it was getting fun. Running past Ling Si, the guy said he was off and he needed to get to floor 10 as soon as possible to get that boss. He said that if he didn't hurry, there wouldn't even be any scraps left. Smiling, he told the protagonist that they would see each other on the 10th floor. Ling Si, frowning, remained silent and thought that this guy was not as simple as he seemed, and he probably also had some skill that allowed him to clear mobs quickly. It's getting fun, he thought. With the blessing of the Giant King, Ling Si cleared the subsequent floors in a flash. As with the previous floors, the protective shield spells instant death for the low-level mobs. It was only until he cleared floor 9 that Ling Si finally gained 1 level and became level 43. Meanwhile, the blessing of the Giant King's skill upgrade reached 9230 out of 10,000. As for the randomly spawned boss, it was a giant monster with millions of HP. By the time Ling Si got there, the arena was already filled to the brim with other solo mode and team mode players. Ling Si smirked and thought that the accumulated stacked attacks from using Blessing of the Giant King in the past floors might come in handy now. He thought that with his current DPS, he wouldn't even have to switch to his Spell Thief setup, and when the boss health reached around 10,000, he could kill him in one hit with the immense burst damage from the final stacked attack. The protagonist thought that leveling bonus from a boss like this was nothing to scoff at, and to improve his leveling efficiency, he should definitely get it. Ling Si stood there, shrouded in electricity. Stacked attacks, 2236. The health scale above the boss's head was about a quarter full. Ling Si thought with a smirk that he only had 20,000 HP left. Noticing the light behind him, he turned around. A huge blob of energy flew next to him. The energy blob hit the boss, dropping his health to 0. The protagonist, noticing this damage, thought someone else sniped it. The person behind said copied his DPS and killed this boss without a hitch. The same guy with green hair appeared in front of the protagonist and said they met again. He asked him about being one of the candidates for the Badge of the Glorious as well. Noticing that it was him again, Ling Si frowned in surprise. People were standing around the disappearing defeated boss. Ling Si thought about the fact that he too was a candidate for the Badge of the Glorious. The guy with green hair exhaled with a smile. He said that the reward was pretty good and he would get 10% extra experience on all floors, and also the damage he dealt to monsters on each floor would be increased by 10%, and the higher he got, the more valuable the reward would be. The guy said that he only came here after completing this floor's quest. He asked about Ling Si as well. He said that he was sorry for stealing this last blow from him. Ling Si, gritting his teeth, said that he had just said something about being a candidate for the Badge of the Glorious. The guy replied that he was also one of the 3 candidates for the Badge of the Glorious. Ling Si frowned. The guy said with a smile that he probably knew that there were 3 candidates, and although there were quite a few professionals in this game, Ling Si's performance during that torchfire competition caught his attention. He added that judging from his reaction, he was right. Ling Si tensed up at the fact that he did know that there were 2 other candidates, but he hadn't really thought much about it and didn't expect that one of them would approach him directly like this. The guy said that as far as he should know by now, the fact that there were 3 candidates meant that there might only be 1 left at the end. The protagonist frowned, and the guy said, pointing his finger at him with a sly smile, that he had come here to take away his right to be a candidate. A dagger appeared in Ling Si's hand, and he grinningly asked about taking away his right to candidacy. Getting into a fighting stance, he told him to try if he was really capable of it, because it would save him the trouble of looking for him. The boy was much more quiet. Flashing an innocent smile all around, he asked who was talking about fighting him here. Exhaling, he asked why he was so impulsive. Ling Si looked at him with a perplexed look, raising an eyebrow. The guy asked about the fact that since they were in this tower, why not do something more interesting? He suggested they have a competition to see what would be the first to reach the 21st floor, and whoever could do it would be the winner. Folding his arms across his chest, the guy said that the loser would be forced to resign his candidacy. Ling Si asked why he would accept such a bet. The guy, raising his hand, exclaimed about being boring. He asked if it sounded fun. Leaning in slightly, he playfully asked if he was scared. The protagonist, laughing slightly, said that it was interesting, and he hadn't seen such a look of disdain in a long time. With a smirk, he said that his bet was too simple, and he proposed one more condition. Ling Si said that the loser would have to sign a master-servant contract and serve the winner for the rest of his life. He asked what he thought. The boy remained silent. Ling Si with a sinister face asked if he was scared. Laughing, the guy said that he was an interesting guy and it was people like him that made this game interesting. He said he was even crazier than himself. Smirking, the guy agreed and said they would see who could reach the 21st floor first. He said that their candidacy and lifelong master-servant contract would be at stake. Ling Si looked at him with a smirk, and they announced the start of the bet. The dialogue box read, Floor 11. Monster, Ifrit. Floor clear requirement, kill 15 Ifrits within 2 hours. The protagonist thought that he really hadn't seen such a look of disdain in a very long time. The dialogue box says, Blessing of the Giant King. Skill upgrade progress, 10,000 out of 10,000. Upgrade requirement met. The skill will now be upgraded. Blessing of the Giant King's effective radius has been increased by 1 meter. Current effective range, 2 meters. Skill upgrade requirement, use Blessing of the Giant King to kill 30,000 monsters. The effective radius will be increased by 1 meter. Floor 12. Monster Ulron. Floor clear requirement, kill 15 Ulrons within 2 hours. Ling Si thought that he would not let anyone treat him like this in this life, and he would not let anyone behave arrogantly in his face. Fighting monsters, he thought that he would accept this challenge, and that was what was stirring up the adrenaline in his blood. Floor 13. Monster Frenzied Beastmen. Floor clear requirement, kill 15 Frenzied Beastmen within 2 hours. Ling Si, fighting the Beastmen, thought that if he didn't have enough self-confidence to take on such a small challenge, how would he be able to achieve his goal? The mage sigil was visible on the forehead of the protagonist, and he said with a smirk that it wasn't a bet with that guy, but a challenge he was challenging himself. Ling Si quickly passed floor after floor, reaching the 20th floor. The ground around him was splattered with blood. He keeps scaling floor after floor. Like a murderous demon, Ling Si loses himself as he carries out a bloody rampage that's proceeding at a frightening rate. The protagonist stood with a serious face splattered with blood. The dialogue box read, Floor 20 progress, 18-0 out of 18-0. Floor 20 mission complete. There are 2 blue portals on the 21st floor. Ling Si stepped out of the portal and said with a chuckle that it was interesting. A guy came out of the other portal, breathing heavily. The protagonist said with a smirk that it looked like they both got here at the same moment. The guy, laughing, said that he was exhausted. Ling Si suggested, since they had a tie, to do something else to determine the winner. The guy, straightening up, said he accepts. A dialogue box announced that duel request is accepted. Ling Si used Night Summon and Dominion of the Mercenary, and Night and Spectral Warriors appeared around him. He said with a smirk that it really gets him fired up. The protagonist used Elemental Manifestation Burning Lava and rushed into attack, surrounded by flames. He figured he would take him down with his relentless strikes. The guy grabbed his weapon, surrounded by blue electricity. A serpent-shaped stream of electricity rushed forward. Ling Si thought of it as a thunder elemental attribute. He swung his dagger, and the electricity and flames collided with each other. They've crossed their weapons, and Ling Si said that this explained how he was able to kill monsters so quickly. He talked about how he must be using his thunder attribute. The protagonist asked if that was an attribute that came along with the special subclass he was promoted to. They looked at each other with a smirk, and the guy grinned. Ling Si frowned and said that he too could use thunder. He used elemental manifestation Thunder Flash and they found themselves surrounded by purple electricity. Ling Si swung his dagger, and the guy dodged with a quick movement. The protagonist noticed that it was top time. Looking at the opponent who landed, Ling Si thought about the fact that he had mastered even top time. He thought why he had never heard of this guy in his past life, and he really has the skills to be a candidate for the Badge of the Glorious. The guy, surrounded by yellow electricity, said it looked like he needed to call for backup too. He summoned the Glorious Griffin, and a huge yellow bird spirit appeared above him. Above the guy was a huge griffin surrounded by yellow energy. The knight told the protagonist that Glorious Griffin, like him, is also a guardian of the glorious, and his abilities are on par with his. Ling Si, frowning, asked if that was true and which one was stronger, him or the griffin. The knight replied that before his evolution, the griffin is currently stronger because it has the ability to fly. Ling Si thought about the words about evolution. Frowning, he thought about whether it meant that the knight could evolve. He thought that he should ask him about it later once he was done with this guy. The guy, stroking the griffin's beak, said with a smile that he had reached level 50 a few days ago. Apologizing for the question, he asked what level Ling Si was. The protagonist replied that he was level 43. He thought that he didn't expect there to be a gap of 7 levels between them, and if it was an ordinary player, he would still be able to use his skills to bridge the gap, but since it was a professional, things would get tricky. The guy surrounded by yellow energy said it was amazing, and even seeing the difference in their levels, he doesn't show any signs of fear. Getting into a fighting stance, he used the special post-promotion skill, Vessel of Thunderous Calling, and said he would still fulfill his plans to defeat him today. He said that he would take away his candidacy. Ling Si wondered what kind of skill this was. The knight told him to leave the griffin to him. Running forward, he ordered the spectral warriors to follow him. Ling Si wondered why Knight of the Glorious so intelligent, and whether it was because he was a special NPC. The knight and the spectral warrior rushed to attack the griffin, and the guy said that he was fine with that, and the two of them could play with each other without disturbing them. He smirked, surrounded by yellow electricity. Appearing behind Ling Si's back, he swung his sword and thought that one of the characteristics of the thunder element was violent swiftness. He struck with his sword, shattering the floor with yellow electricity. The guy told the main character that his thief skills wouldn't be very effective against a warrior like him. Using shadow-seeking static, he shouted that there was no way he could dodge it. Ling Si, looking at the yellow lightning strikes, thought that this was true, and if he was an ordinary thief, he wouldn't be able to resist a warrior like him. Smirking, surrounded by water, he thought that unfortunately for him, he was not an ordinary thief. Ling Si used elemental manifestation covert water and ended up beside his opponent, dodging the lightning strikes. The water enveloped his opponent, and the protagonist told him to suffocate in his water vapor. The protagonist watched his opponent suffocate in the water bubble. After getting out of the water, the guy grinningly said that he had tricked him. Ling Si asked in surprise that he didn't get restrained by his skill. The guy shrouded in yellow energy said that the Vessel of Thunderous Calling provides immunity to spells. Vessel of Thunderous Calling, gain immunity to all spells for 1 minute. In addition, all attacks will be augmented with the thunder element, dealing lightning damage and inducing paralysis to enemies. The enemy used paralyzing thunder prison and the protagonist was surrounded by yellow electricity. Ling Si gritted his teeth, said it was a silencing skill that paralyzes. The dialogue box says, "You have been paralyzed and silenced. Duration, 1 second. The guy used Thunder Dragon, and a huge stream of yellow dragon-shaped energy rushed towards Ling Si. There was an explosion, raising a cloud of dust. The guy asked about the fact that he had mastered top time as well. He said that he was good because he used top time to maximize the effect like that. Ling Si stood in the dust cloud, and the guy said that his attack still landed. The main character stood there frowning. Above his head, you could see that his health scale had decreased slightly. He thought that Vessel of the Thunderous Calling nullifies all his magic spells, and being a warrior whose level is 7 levels higher than him puts a thief like him in a disadvantageous situation. Ling Si thought that his thunder attribute would also impose paralysis if he got close, and this guy is really strong. The Griffon flapped its wings and a whirlwind of green energy rushed at the knight, who thought it was showy and insubstantial tricks. With a wave of his sword, he said to it, "Begone." The Griffon hovered in the air in front of him, shrouded in yellow electricity, and the knight thought that if he had been in the same state as back then, even he, who could fly, would have fallen from his blade. Ling Si ran across the arena between the lightning bolts striking the stone floor. Losing health, he thought that at this rate, this extra lightning damage of his would become increasingly worse for him. The guy appeared behind the protagonist's back, swinging his blade, and Ling Si, noticing that the paralysis time was over, thought it was his time. He used Evil Spirit's invisibility, and a purple evil spirit appeared at the point of impact. The guy said that he wouldn't be able to catch it wielding the thunder attribute with these skills. Ling Si, appearing behind his opponent's back, swung his dagger and told him to eat this. The guy shrouded in yellow electricity said that they looked to see whose DPS would be higher after he copied him. Ling Si, remembering the boss battle, tensed up at the thought that he could copy his damage buffs, and he solely wanted to raise the DPS. He surprisingly asked about his Knight of the Glorious skill. Yellow lightning struck the stone floor. The guy, spreading his hands apart, replied that he guessed right, and the DPS he uses is that Lord Rank Knight's DPS. Laughing, he said his Knight's DPS was impressive, and he was glad he figured it out so quickly. He said that if he took on the full brunt of this attack, he would have already become his servant. Ling Si thought that his strength after being boosted by the glorious DPS is really strong. The main character's health bar showed that he had very little HP left. Slowly exhaling, he thought that he was almost killed in one hit with his own skill. Ling Si said that it was too early to say what would serve whom. He said that Knight of the Glorious was not his only top DPS skill. The guy frowned nervously and asked if he was talking about the skill he used to chop the gate. He asked if he had been waiting all this time to finish his cooldown. The dialogue box reported that the cooldown for the summon weapon, Heavensward, had ended. A huge sword appeared from the red magic circle above Ling Si's head, and he said that he had gotten it right and he would try out the move on him. The protagonist, frowning, used the King's Majesty and Earth Shatterer. Looking at the huge blade approaching, the guy thought, what immense pressure. The dialogue box read, under the invisible majesty of the king, you have temporarily lost the ability to move. A huge purple spirit struck the enemy with a huge sword. The dialogue box says, Heavensward's exclusive skill, Earth Shatterer. This is the great sword that can cleave through space and open up a new ground. Mete out judgment with the majesty of a king. The guy was surprised to think that this is a really ridiculous skill. The Griffon in front of the knight began to fade away, and the knight said that the outcome seemed to be clear. He congratulated his master. A dialogue box congratulated him on winning the duel. Ling Si, standing in front of the losing guy who had fallen to his knees, said with a smirk that he had lost. The guy, clucking his tongue, said that he knew it himself. Gritting his teeth, he said that he seemed to have underestimated him. Ling Si, lifting his face by his chin, said with a smile that he could only find an opportunity if he took the initiative to strike. He asked if the slave understood him. The boy pushed his hand away and said he admitted defeat. Holding his shoulder, he said that although he was hurt by the defeat, he had to admit that he was really very strong. Ling Si thanked him for the compliment and reminded him that he had debts to pay off. The boy, frowning, pressed his lips together. Ling Si said that he would first take away his right to be a candidate for the Badge of the Glorious. The dialogue box said, will you take away your opponent's right to candidacy? The protagonist clicked yes. The dialogue box says, your right to candidacy has been taken away. You are not the final glorious one. The guy looked in surprise at the glowing Badge of the Glorious, which began to disappear. The dialogue box read, the Badge of the Glorious will now be leaving you. The brilliance of glory is everlasting. The Badge of the Glorious disappeared. The boy tearfully said that he would miss his Badge of the Glorious. Ling Si shone a satisfied smile. The dialogue box said, beginning the delivery of rewards. Ling Si was surprised to notice a bright light. Surrounded by the bright light, he thought that the experience was pouring in incessantly. The dialogue box read, congratulations, you have gained 6 levels. Current level, level 49. Ling Si exclaimed in surprise that he had gained level 6. The guy exclaimed in surprise. The dialogue box said, as the victor, will you claim the opponent's glorious skills, summon Griffin and copy damage? Ling Si silently turned around. A guy with a sad face was rubbing his neck. The protagonist silently looked at him. The dialogue box announced that he had chosen no. The guy behind him was surprised. He asked why. He said that the 2 skills had actually been learned after he had gotten them from Badge of the Glorious, and if he wanted to take them back, he would give them away. Ling Si replied that there was no need for that. The guy shouted that if he left him with such strong skills, he needed to beware that he would become stronger than him in the future. Ling Si turned around and asked with a smirk, forgetting that he was now his servant. He asked if it would only be better for him if he became stronger. The protagonist said that he had faith that he wouldn't lose to anyone in the future, so letting the person he defeated keep a couple strong skills was nothing. The guy, after a bit of silence, asked what his name was. The protagonist replied that his name was Ling Si. The guy pressed his lips together. He suddenly appeared in front of the protagonist with a radiant smile, calling him Master Ling Si. Spinning around him, the guy said that from now on, she would be at his beck and call, and he could be his bodyguard, fighter, or anything he wished. He told him not to belittle him because he's pretty famous too, he just prefers to be low-key. Ling Si told him not to call him master with that obnoxious tone of voice. He asked if he could introduce himself properly first. The guy introduced himself, saying that his name was Narlo and he was a knight from the Wolf's Fang Guild. Ling Si frowned and asked about him being from the Wolf's Fang Guild. Narlo said that it would be more accurate to say that Wolf's Fang hired him, and their vice guildmaster, Squirrel, spent a large sum of money to convince him to join them. He said with a smile that he usually only came to the guild when they needed him. With his arm around the protagonist's waist, Narlo said that he had to say that Wolf's Fang was very boring, and he couldn't believe that he originally joined them out of boredom. He said that now he won't be bored anymore because he has to protect his master. Ling Si, gritting his teeth, told him to get lost. The dialogue box announced that the master-servant contract has been established. Ling Si left his signature on the dialogue box. He said with a sinister smile that since the master-servant contract had been established, he just had to wait to contact him next time. The master-servant said that maybe one day he would really need his help, but for now he was going to continue scaling this tower to level up. Narlo, walking away into the portal, said that he was leaving the tower and they would see each other later. Ling Si asked in surprise why he was going to leave. Leaving into the portal told him not to overthink it, and in fact he only came to the tower because he was bored and he didn't need this tower to raise his level. Narlo said he needs to go back to Wolf's Fang for a while to take care of some things. He said that he would wait for him to contact him. Ling Si, closing his eyes, thought that the person they had invited to join their guild had become his servant, and Wolf's Fang would most likely jump with anger. He figured he already had an idea of what to do with Narlo, and now he had better start scaling this tower, and he was about in the boss of this floor that he hadn't dealt with yet. In front of him was a huge serpent. Ling Si thought that he would set a new record. For the following floors, Ling Si set a new record for every floor as he cleared them. From floor 20 onwards, even with the increase of 6 levels and blessing of the Giant King, he wasn't able to kill mobs instantly anymore, so he has to start using supplementary skills. However, Ling Si seemed to have entered a mysterious grinding state. With the aid of the Knight of the Glorious and the generals, Ling Si entered an unprecedented state and rushed towards the very top without stopping. Finally, when even Ling Si lost count of what level he was at, Ling Si, standing in front of the blue portal, thought that the best record so far was the 68th floor, which was right behind this portal. Putting his hands in his pockets, he thought that his goal lay much further than the 68th floor. Smirking, the protagonist thought he was aiming for the very top. The dialogue box reads, Floor 68. Current best clear time, 54 minutes. Winged armored monsters were flying in the sky. Ling Si thought that he understood why many people were stumped by this trial, and defeating monsters of this size with so much HP was impossible if the player lacked skill. The dialogue box says, Monster Iron Dragon. Floor clear requirement, kill 300 Iron Dragons within 1 hour. Ling Si thought about how he should defeat monsters capable of flying. He thought that if he used his Spellmage's elemental manifestation spells, he might not be able to handle it if there were too many of them at the same time and it would affect his speed. The knight telepathically told him that his king's majesty would instill terror into these dragons, and when that happened, they would fall from the sky themselves. He said that even he couldn't do anything about the effect it had on him when he used it. A mage sigil appeared on Ling Si's forehead and he said King's Majesty is quite something. He said that he couldn't think that it would have such an effect. Kneading his wrist, the protagonist said that since that was the case, he would look for the place where dragons were the most. He said that with Spellmage moves and he would create a legendary record that no one could ever beat. Stepping on the stone cliff, Ling Si said that it seemed like this should be enough for him to set a new record. He stood on the cliff with many dragons flying in front of him. Raising his dagger upwards, the main character summoned the Knight of the Glorious. The knight appeared behind his back. Ling Si said that he wanted to experience the true power of King's Majesty. The knight told him that the current range of his King's Majesty would not be able to reach out that far from this position. Looking at the dragons flying in the air, he said that this peak was too far away from the arena's mobs. Ling Si replied that he knows that, and this distance is beyond even the range of the grappling hook item. He said that's where he comes in. The knight replied that he understood and was awaiting his orders. Ling Si told him that he was going to take full advantage of his dual-class status as a spell thief. Pointing at one of the dragons, he said that he was his first target. The protagonist said that he had been watching its flight path for a long time, and right now was the moment when the distance between them was the shortest. He told the knight to prepare to swing his sword. The knight put his sword forward and said he understood. Pushing off from the ground, Ling Si told him to use his strength to send him there. The knight swung his sword, sending Ling Si forward like a baseball. Ling Si used the single-use item grappling hook in the air, grabbing the dragon's tail with it. He said that he would use them all as his stepping stones. The dragon turned around, exposing many sharp teeth in its mouth. Ling Si ran down the dragon's back, shouting that he would be the first. Pushing off from the dragon's back, he jumped onward. As he approached the dragon swinging a huge clawed paw, he used backstab. The dragon was surprised to notice that the protagonist in front of him had disappeared. Finding himself behind the dragon's back, he thought his target was the highest point in the very middle. With a wicked smile, Ling Si used King's Majesty. A bright yellow energy surrounded him. The bright light illuminated the dragons around him, and they began to fall down, trembling. Ling Si jumped off the dragon and, surrounded by 3 multicolored flames, said that no matter how strong their defenses were, he would force them to submit. Surrounded by flames, water, and electricity, the protagonist used the vessel of the restless chaos. A stream of water, fire, and electricity hit the ground. The dragon's HP began to drop rapidly, and Ling Si, laughing, shouted out that it felt good. He said that he would vaporize all of them. The dialogue box said, 300 out of 300. Congratulations on fulfilling the requirement. A man in the crowd who was looking at the screen asked in surprise who the professional was. The dialogue box says, congratulations, Anonymous. You have broken the 100-story training tower's best record. The team of people laughing at Ling Si at the entrance of the tower came out of the blue portal on the 25th floor. The guy in armor said that this was the second time they were challenging the tower, and their goal this time was the 40th floor. He said they can't let their guards down like the first one, and healing has to be prompted. The mage in the green hat said that to get to the 25th floor, they had to use everything they had. He asked if it was even possible to reach the 40th floor. The mage with the tired face said he wondered what floor the arrogant thief they had met that morning had reached. The guy in armor asked with a chuckle how far he thought a solo player could get. He told him that without at least a healer around, it was impossible. The guy, looking at the dialogue box, shouted in surprise to the captain to see that someone had set a new record. The dialogue box says, notice, there is a new record for the 100-story training tower. The tower's new record, floor 69, solo mode, class, thief. The guy in armor was surprised to hear that he was a thief in solo mode. The mage asked in surprise that it couldn't be the thief. The knight, disappearing, told the protagonist that it was masterfully played. Ling Si calmly replied that he was flattering him. The dialogue box says, congratulations on clearing the trial. Your experience gain will be increased by 200%. Ling Si smiled as he noticed that he had raised his level again and thought that it was fast. He thought that with this bonus, if it works outside of this area, it will be crazy. The dialogue box says, congratulations on clearing the trial. You have obtained an attribute of the Iron Dragons, physical damage resistance plus 30%. This attribute will disappear upon leaving the tower. Congratulations on setting a new record. Please wait for the system to issue your special reward. The dialogue box flashed with images of various chests. Ling Si remembered that there were also rewards for setting new records. An image of a book with a key and the words skill rebuilding appeared on the dialogue box. The next dialogue box says, congratulations, you have received a chance to rebuild your skills. We have detected that you have 2 different classes. Please select one class to choose the skills you'd like to replace. The skills you've selected will turn into points. You may use these points to obtain new skills for the selected class. Ling Si was surprised to think that skill rebuilding is something that can only be obtained from clearing major DLC expansions. On the dialogue box in front of him were the mage and thief symbols. The main character thought that he should choose one of the classes. While pondering over which class to choose, he thought that his thief skills were indeed a bit weak for his current level, but it would be nice to get a couple of stronger mage skills to keep up his sleeve. Scratching his head, Ling Si frowned and grudgingly asked why he couldn't rebuild the skills of both of his classes. Deciding to leave it for later, he thought that he needed to think it over carefully before doing anything. Standing in front of the blue portal, the protagonist thought it was time to go back to scaling this tower and it might give him some ideas. He thought he was heading towards the 100th floor. At first, the other players thought this mysterious thief would exit the tower after scaling a couple more floors at the most. However, what unfolded was beyond even the wildest of their imaginations. Ling Si continued scaling the floors, reaching the 80th floor. What they thought was already a jaw-dropping record was broken with a new record, then another, and another over and over again. After floor 90, everyone watched with anticipation. They were all waiting for the thief to reach the 100th floor. A dialogue box congratulated the protagonist on clearing floor 99. Ling Si stood in front of the blue portal on the stone steps. At the top of the tower, piercing the clouds in the sky, was the blue portal. Ling Si said that the 100th floor was right in front of them. With a smirk, he said that he would break the record in one shot. The blue portal erupted with blue energy. Floor 100. The arena with the blue portal was surrounded by tall, sharp rocks. The dialogue box said, the final floor. Mission, kill the legendary NPC of your assigned class and his forces. Time, 60 minutes. Ling Si stepped out of the portal. There was a cloud of dust in the air, surrounded by purple energy. A monster in black armor with a metal mask was emitting purple energy. This monster is legendary thief Vicious Ghoul Yaz, level 60. Ling Si, folding his hands in his pockets, thought this legendary thief Yaz is quite strong. The knight told him that if he could deal a finishing blow to a legendary NPC with him, he would be able to evolve. Ling Si exclaimed in surprise and said that he couldn't have imagined that it would turn out to be a requirement for evolution. He added that it was really specific. Raising his dagger, the protagonist said that it was perfectly in their favor. He summoned a knight and the knight appeared behind his back. Ling Si looked at the dialogue box that appeared in front of him in surprise, which read, "As you have been assigned to a dual-class player, an additional legendary NPC will be spawned. Good luck." Another opponent that looked like a witch with white hair, legendary mage Terra Revenant Caster Lyria, level 60, appeared from the purple portal. Ling Si asked in surprise that being dual-class meant that he had to fight 2 legendary NPCs at the same time. Lyria made a loud sound, emitting purple sound waves while standing behind Yaz. The dialogue box reads, "Due to the presence of legendary mage, Terra Revenant Caster Lyria, your summoned familiar has been forcefully retracted." The knight, disappearing, called out to his master. Ling Si exclaimed in surprise and asked about having to fight both of them alone. Smirking, he said that it was exciting. Lyria, raising up a side surrounded by black writing, used black formation. A dark purple magic circle appeared under Ling Si's feet, and he was surrounded by ghosts. The protagonist asked about what they were already starting. He said that it wasn't very fair, and they should at least give him time to think about his strategy. Ling Si, gritting his teeth, thought that they were attacking him with relentless assaults right off the bat, not giving him any time to react. Using Throat Slasher to get rid of the ghosts surrounding him, he figured this won't do, and he needed to put some distance between him and those annoying minions at once and then find an opportunity to strike back. Looking at his opponents, the protagonist thought his target was the 2 legendary NPCs. Yaz appeared behind him, swinging his daggers, and Ling Si thought that he needed to make some space for himself first. Yaz swung his daggers, and the protagonist dodged thanks to his top-time skill. The shockwave from the opponent's attack shattered the stone floor of the arena. Ling Si, after landing, thought that it was close, and if it wasn't for his top-time reflexes, he would have died from this attack. He gritted his teeth after noticing the movement from behind. Using evil spirit's invisibility, the protagonist let out a curse and said that they weren't even giving him time to catch his breath. Lyria raised her hand up in the air, surrounded by ghosts. A multitude of ghosts attacked Ling Si at the same time, and he tried desperately to block their blows. Gritting his teeth, he tensely thought that this was very bad, and at this rate, he would die. Yaz was lightning fast behind the protagonist's back. Using Neckbreaker, he stabbed his blade into his neck, and blood spurted out of Ling Si's mouth. His health scale dropped to half, and the protagonist, frowning and clenching his jaws, thought that he couldn't even dodge their attacks. He thought that they coordinate their skills so well and then attack him as soon as he finished making his moves. Ling Si thought that he couldn't dodge at all. As he fell to the ground, he kicked up a cloud of dust. Getting up from the ground, the protagonist thought that no one would be able to withstand such unrelenting assaults. Frowning, he thought that 1 legendary NPC is already a handful, and his special status has really done him in this time. Looking at the opponents surrounded by purple ghosts, Ling Si thought about the fact that on top of that, they had all these summoned mobs. He thought how he should kill them one by one. Suddenly, the protagonist had an epiphany and thought about the words about killing one at a time. Rising to his feet, Ling Si thought that he had been acting off script for so long that he had already forgotten the essence of being a thief. Lyria raised up her scythe, and Yaz swung his daggers. Ling Si, standing in front of them, thought how he could forget the essence of his ideal image of a thief. With a smirk, he thought that he should stay alive. The enemy's attack pierced the protagonist, and his health dropped to 0. Smiling with a bloody mouth and disappearing, Ling Si thought that he wouldn't keep them waiting for long. A dialogue box reported that he had failed to clear floor 100. He appeared in front of a knight who bowed down on his knee in front of him. The knight told him that he was ashamed of himself for failing to help him. The protagonist replied that it wasn't his fault. The dialogue box says, "You have failed the challenge. Will you return to floor 1 to attempt the challenge again?" Ling Si put his hand on the knight's shoulder and told him that he had one question. He asked him with a smile and asked him what he thought about joining him to scale the tower again from floor 1. The dialogue box says, "Will you return to floor 1 to attempt the challenge again?" Select no to exit the tower. The knight put his hand on his chest and said that he would be honored to keep him company on his way to the top again. Ling Si came out of the blue portal on the first floor. She pressed the skill rebuilding button. The protagonist stood with a face expressing nothing. The dialogue box said, "Save reward activated. Please select the class that you'd like to rebuild." Ling Si said he was choosing to rebuild his thief class skill set. He said to show him a list of high-level skills from the assassination skill tree. The dialogue box said, "Assassination." Ling Si frowned, surrounded by dark purple energy. 100-story tower, the final floor. The dialogue box announced that since the protagonist was determined to be a dual-class player, an additional legendary NPC would be spawned. The legendary thief Vicious Ghoul Yaz, level 60, and legendary mage Terra Revenant Caster Lyria, level 60, appeared in front of the protagonist. They stood in front of a blue portal. The dialogue boxes read, "Due to the presence of legendary mage Terra Revenant Caster Lyria, your summoned familiar has been forcefully recalled. Due to the pressure exerted by legendary mage Terror Revenant caster Lyria, your passive skill, Blessing of the Giant King, has been temporarily nullified. Ling Si walked out of the blue portal with a smile and apologized for keeping them waiting. Yaz and Lyria stood up in battle stances. Ling Si, who had reached level 58, said with a smirk as he climbed back up from the first floor. Lyria raised up a scythe surrounded by purple ghosts and used Devastation of Corpses, Ghoul Ensemble. Ling Si told them to attack him all together. Ling Si used Fog Dominion, creating a fog around him, and the ghosts lost their target. Ling Si said with a smirk that he would show them his new thief skills. The ghosts flew around the fog created by the protagonist. A dialogue box described Fog Dominion creates a field of fog. Backstab and sneak attacks will now deal guaranteed critical damage. Ling Si, running through the fog, thought of the thieves as assassins who hid in the shadows, and he would take advantage of the cover created by this domain of fog to kill each of them one by one. Ling Si chopped the ghost in half with a swing of his dagger. The ghosts noticed the protagonist who jumped out of the fog. He used Raging Slaughter, killing the ghosts around him with red energy. Raging Slaughter, killing enemies will give you rage, which can be stacked. The higher the rage value, the more of the enemy's armor you can ignore. After accumulating 100 stacks of rage, you may use the skill Slaughter. Above the head of Ling Si, who was grinning evilly, was a sign saying that he had obtained a stack of rage. Yaz appeared behind him and jumped at him to attack. Ling Si returned to the fog, killing several ghosts, and Yaz lost target. The protagonist thought that when the enemy came, he would retreat. Ling Si ran up to Yaz. The enemy's eye lit up purple, and he used perception. Yaz discovered Ling Si, but he was already behind his back, swinging his dagger. The protagonist asked about him trying to use perception. He said that he had been watching him the whole time. Ling Si interrupted his opponent's skill with his attack, and a cloud of dust rose in the mist. Yaz lost his aim, and the main character in the mist said that even if it was a formal one-on-one match, he still wouldn't be scared of him. He added that he was not his main priority. Ling Si ran towards Lyria and thought that his target was this mage. Lyria tensely turned around towards the main character. The dialogue box read, Rage, 100 out of 100. Skill Slaughter is ready. The energy above the protagonist's head glowed with a red light. Ghosts surrounded the protagonist. Ling Si used Shadow Ambush. Shadow Ambush. Activating this skill will allow you to lock onto an opponent who will be isolated and brought into a shadow dimension. When inside the shadow dimension, your stealth stat is doubled, and your target's defense is reduced by 30%. Once in front of the opponent, the protagonist said that since they like ganging up on others so much, he will split them two up. A sphere of purple energy enveloped them. Ling Si, surrounded by red energy, said with a sinister smirk that now that she had a double defense debuff from both Shadow Ambush and Rage placed on her, she was no more than a piece of paper to him. Lyria opened her mouth tensely. The inscriptions around her announced armor reduction, and that her defense had been reduced by 30%. Slaughter has been triggered, and Ling Si smiled ominously. After using Slaughter, he struck with a dagger shrouded in red energy. A blast of red energy pierced through the sphere of purple energy. A dialogue box read, Congratulations, you have killed legendary mage Terror Revenant caster Lyria. The ghosts around the protagonist began to disappear. The dialogue box says, as legendary mage Terror Revenant caster Lyria has been killed, your spell restrictions have been lifted. A mage sigil appeared on Ling Si's forehead, and he said with a smirk that now it was time for him to experience how it feels like to be ganged up on. A knight appeared next to the main character. The guys from the team that made fun of Ling Si appeared outside the tower. The guy in armor asked in surprise why so many people were online at such a late hour. The mage in the green hat asked what they were all looking at and if they were still waiting for that anonymous thief to finish scaling the tower. He asked in surprise that he was still there. He said that as far as he could remember, after they failed on floor 43 this morning, that thief failed the final floor before they were booted out. The mage asked about the fact that it had only been a few hours and he had already made it to the final floor again. The guy in armor said he didn't think that's all there was to it. He opened his eyes in surprise. On the screen, above which fireworks sparkled, it said, Congratulations, anonymous player. Class, Thief. You have cleared all 100 floors. You have set the first tower clear record. A guy in the crowd exclaimed that that thief had actually made it to the top. Another guy shouted that he was insanely strong. Another guy said that it looked like he didn't wait for anything. Asked who the guy was, he said he should start following him. Floor 100. The dialogue box said, Congratulations, you have killed legendary thief Vicious Ghoul Yes. The knight stood there, thrusting his sword into the vanishing body of his opponent. The dialogue box says, You have cleared the 100-story training tower and are the very first one to do so. Your record has been saved. Ling Si looked at the knight. The dialogue box said that Knight of the Glorious has assisted with taking down a legendary NPC and leveled up. The knight was standing with his back to the protagonist, surrounded by purple squares. Lingxi said, almost forgetting that he had to level up as well. The knight turned around and said with a smile that he was grateful to him. Looking at the purple squares in front of him, the protagonist exclaimed in surprise that even the spectral horse had leveled up. In front of him in the air was a knight clad in golden armor riding a winged black horse. The dialogue box said, Golden Knight of the Glorious and Spectral Pegasus. The knight told the protagonist that while he can't ride the Pegasus during quests, he can cut down on travel time when he's in the overworld. Lingxi asked surprisingly about whether the new look was based on the legendary NPC they defeated. The dialogue box says, Congratulations on receiving the reward for leveling up. Congratulations on receiving the bonus class-based reward for clearing the tower. Lingxi, who had reached level 60, looking at the dialogue box glowing brightly with blue light, thought that this reward for leveling up had probably gone past the cap, because after all, level 60 was the maximum player level for this tower. He thought that, in any case, the most important reward is the last reward. The dialogue box says, Legendary Thief Skill, Conqueror's Concealment. Shield yourself with naught but the void, and none shall perceive you. When going into stealth, your aura will inflict fear on enemies that are of a lower level than you. Enemies who approach you will be inflicted with a weakened debuff. Note, enemies of a higher level will be immune to its effects. Also, your stealth mode will easily be seen through by enemies with keen perception. Lingxi, looking at the blue book, exclaimed happily that it was indeed the legendary skill Conqueror's Concealment. Holding the book in his hands, he said that in that case, he could carry out his plan, and it was time for Shadow to assemble.